Hello, this is Cristina Gallegos, founder and CEO of Lark Strategies, and today I am talking to you out of a lunchbox, which we'll tell you more about it perhaps later, with Maya Stark, Executive Director of LA Makerspace. Maya?
Hello, a lunchbox.
The reason why we came here today is to follow up on a conversation the GG Society fellows had during a retreat. We were talking about fundraising and communication and marketing, and there was a bit of confusion around it. Some people thought that fundraising, communication, marketing are one integral role that one person could play, and some people thought that fundraising, communication, and marketing are three very, very distinct jobs and roles, and they have very different functions in an organization. And we wanted to dispel a bit of the myth, or at least put some light onto how they are symbiotic and how they are different and how we might be able to use them more effectively.
Okay, so actually my first question is going to be, what do people think those things are? What are people defining those as currently?
I think a lot of people believe that fundraising is the ask at the end of a marketing campaign, and the communication is the way you talk about your marketing and you talk about your fundraising. And that really, particularly the confusion I thought was between marketing and communication, which felt like two names of the same thing.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering because I'm like, I don't even know if I've thought much about marketing from a nonprofit perspective, because it does seem like it would fall underneath the fundraising process. But I've definitely thought a lot about communications and fundraising and how those things relate. So, I mean, I guess I kind of fall under the group of people that do feel like, in an underlying way, they're absolutely the same thing, and they need to be connected, they need to be consonant with each other, and they both have the same goal. But I think, I almost have to start with the definition of the term fundraising, because yes. I feel like I know there's many like proper book versions of what that word means and things that you learn in school and whatnot, but possibly from my own perspective, coming from a background of having been a screenwriter, it doesn't seem any different to me than the kind of pitching or storytelling that I did in that realm. Because when I went in to pitch a take on an adaptation of a book, or a pilot for a television show, it was about creating the story in such a way that the person that you're talking to can imagine their role in it. It's not just, that was a zinger of a story. It was like I became caught up in that, and I could see how my part as like a television executive or somebody that's making this purchasing decision, I can see how I can merge into and become a part of that. So when I approach fundraising, I really feel like it's exactly like making up a story, and in some ways I feel like the genre of it is science fiction, because fundraising, just like a science fiction movie, is about a what if. It's about, this is a way that the world could be. Wouldn't that be awesome? We feel so happy if it was like that. And then what I'm explaining to you now is, this is how we believe that we could get there, and this is how you would be a character in the story. This is what you would be like, like you'd be the elf or the gnome or what have you if it was like Lord of the Rings.
Or the knight in the shiny armor.
Yeah, exactly. Elves are really cool though. So that's what I think fundraising is. It's sort of like, it's world, like people are like, it's storytelling. But I don't think people know a lot about what storytelling is. Like, storytelling isn't an anecdote. Storytelling isn't, a novel. Storytelling is really a sort of an active group experience that people have with each other in creating a journey that they're all going on in their imagination. So I would say that if I'm talking about the relationship between fundraising and communications, it's like communications is inviting the world to the story, whereas fundraising is more like inviting one particular person to the story. So if I'm thinking about how do I do communications to the whole entire world about how they can join in the story, the genre I tend to think of there is actually workplace comedy. So something something like, I don't know what's like a current, like, Spin City or I mean, I don't even know what's a workplace comedy right now.
Office?
Yeah, like The Office. But it's sort of like, what you're doing there is you are creating your own organization as a character that people in the audience of the world can relate to as an imaginary being, in a sense. Like, we can't really relate to a monolith or an organization, no matter how much it helps people, if we don't have any sense of personality to it, if it's nothing beyond a logo or, a statistic. But if it's like, I tend to speak in a we voice in our social media, where it's like, today we went to the Space Museum and thought about how we can make up workshops on Mars, and, just sort of like, really just sharing people on the adventure that you go through in doing your work, is what will help them just become warm towards you. And, I forget what I was just trying to say.
So fundraising is, if I'm listening to you, is creating a platform of what if in which others could plug into, relate to, get excited about, and plug into. And the communication is the way of how you do that.
Not totally. I would say the distinction between the two is more so in the audience, and the audience is what leads the technique. Because if you're speaking to a group of people, and you can't tailor it to them because you don't know them, but what you can do is create an imaginary person in their mind that they can relate to. So you're kind of showing, your personality, who is your organization in the world as a character. Oh, my organization is this scrappy one who's maybe kind of silly, but then ends up doing a lot. Or, I just described LA Makerspace, so I don't know how to describe someone else because I haven't thought about it yet. But, I would like you to feel like you know that guy, even though it's kind of an abstract. And that's, people do talk about that in the realm of branding of books that I've read, which is that you're creating almost a love relationship between a person and an abstract entity. So, we can use that power for Nike, or we can use that power for our organizations. But it's really like, it's that's how you think of it. It's like, it's not, oh, my brand is the color orange and like some, what am I trying, like, what are regular brand traits?
Well, it's feel, it's color, it's shape, it's all that. But to me, is also, I'm trying to understand, where does the ask come into?
Oh, okay.
Is because the fundraising is nothing without the ask at the end.
All right, so I see what you mean. So the communications is laying the groundwork for asking the public audience. So yeah, so it's really just as simple as, if you felt like the thing is a buddy, when the buddy needs help, then you're going to help the buddy. You know what I mean? And I've really felt I've had that experience when I've done crowdfunding campaigns and stuff, where it's like, what I've been trying to do all this time, and now I need a hand. And it seems to translate fairly well.
And you relate to the story, and you understand the characters. And,
yeah.
And you want to be part of the story.
Yeah. I think that what I would stress, though, is for the communications, for the public-facing side, it's like the distinction between TV and a movie. The difference between TV and a movie is that a movie is the single most important thing that has ever happened in the character's life. So when you do fundraising to an individual, you are telling a beginning, middle, and an end that has a hero, and that hero is the person that you want to become involved. But with communications, it's more like a TV series in which you just want to hang out with those characters forever. The question when developing a television series is always like, okay, so how does this go for 100 episodes? Which is a pretty hefty task to put on a storyteller. This is not about the quest of the Lord of the Rings to throw the thing into Mordor. This is about like breakfast with the hobbits all the time, and just where do you want to hang out?
Friends.
And chill. Yeah, it's like Friends.
It's like Friends.
I mean, in some ways, communications is a show about nothing, in that you just want that little everyday of like, oh man, today's robot was named Sparkly, or
And fundraising is the feature adaptation.
Film. Yes, this is the most important thing that has ever happened in the life of this organization.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
And the ask is you have to buy the ticket to see the film.
Well, no, actually, that's not the ask at all. The ask is that you need to now heed the call to adventure and enter the hero's journey. Like if you study
the movie.
No, at the end of the pitch for the movie.
At the end of the
because basically, it's not the movie is actually doing the work.
Okay.
The pitch for the movie is what's happening in fundraising.
So the grant is the movie.
Yeah, the grant is the movie, because once we start working together on the grant
is the movie.
That's when we're having the movie, and like we're going to say we're at the midpoint, or this is what's going on, or going wrong, or going well, or
Where is marketing in this?
I don't really know what's a marketing. It's sort of like, I understand sort of like the communications part, if you think of a peanut M&M, it's like the communications part is the candy shell that like everybody sees and, you know, is facing the outwards. And then the fundraising is kind of like the peanut because it's like the core of everything. It's the most like, you know, individualized part that you have to kind of get through the candy shell and the chocolate. So I'm assuming that marketing would be the chocolate, but I don't know enough about what the definition of marketing people usually have is, I think, to comment.
Maybe the marketing is me telling you to eat the peanut over and over and over and over and telling people that those M&Ms exist.
That makes total sense because ordinarily, at least I personally, would not really want to eat a peanut, but I will definitely eat it if there's chocolate. I don't know how to translate that into anything that makes any practical sense.
Any metaphor. Because there is so much confusion. I mean, marketing is basically, for me, and again, very subjective, all of this is quite subjective beyond the definitions that you would find in a book, is allowing people to know of the existence of this thing over and over and over and over.
Okay, well, all right. If I compare it to, again, the only thing I actually know anything about because it was my life experience, I think that would be kind of like what an agent is. Because an agent is developing relationships that prepare the way for you to go in and pitch the things.
Yeah, and you know to whom to pitch. It's like this audience is the right audience and that right audience is not the right audience, right? And this funder would be the right funder and that funder is not going to be the right funder. And to me, the question is, can those three function done by the same person? Which a lot of people try to do.
Let me see it. So basically, in the fundraising context, the marketing would be making people aware of the organization so that you can go in and tell them about the story. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it would be an in-between step in between communications because if you haven't been doing any communicating, then you can't really introduce people to stuff.
Marketing could also be, here's the value of my programs, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, is not, I think, it can and it is used all the time, not only for fundraising. I think this is one of the pieces that differentiates fundraising from marketing.
Well, that's what confuses me a little bit, because I feel like I have a mental picture of it in a for-profit business and less so in a nonprofit.
To continue this conversation, I think it's about how do I enroll enough students in my program? How do you get buy-in from the community? How do I get community partners to help me build this, that, the other program? So
I see.
Marketing,
I get that because that's a thing I don't have right now, which is someone to help actually bring the program. If marketing is about how do you get more people involved in like being served by the program or be expanded
funding or anything
Okay, because I mean I don't necessarily know if I see a huge connection between like the fundraising and what I understand as the marketing per se, because
so they are definitely distinct.
Yeah, only because I keep unavoidably thinking about fundraising as being the extension of a relationship, and that you need. But I don't know if you found a relationship by things that would be marketing tasks.
I think marketing is most often unidirectional information.
Yeah,
it's water cannons. You throw water cannons at the world in whatever direction you feel.
Don't do that. That's what I would say. Well, maybe if you have like a lot of people
but
to help.
Not only that is because people say, "Oh, I got the grant," and I think this is how our conversation started. I got the grant for a marketing and communication person, and all I need is a fundraiser.
Right.
Like, can I do it all? Can this be one and the same person? Okay. How different those skill sets are.
All right, so let's see. If I got a grant for a marketing communications person, because for us, because we don't have any of those things, I would really start, because like the communications is not writing a newsletter. It's basically what you need out of a communications person is somebody who is, if they themselves are not an embedded reporter in what you're doing, at least they can coordinate the people that are on the field to be that. Like, do you have, for instance, like us instructors that go to libraries, then be sure that they are telling you back their stories, sending you back the pictures of the robots, and that is happening in a consistent flow so that you can create those, infinite episodes of hanging out with the organization. And, I wouldn't worry about it being like repetitive or, this isn't special because we do this every day. It's like, no, you don't want it to be special. Because especially when social media has entered the equation, I've best read the addictiveness of social media described as a social snack. which I kind of loved. And that's why you keep repeating and refreshing, just like a lab rat that wants a pellet, because any social interaction or feeling of connection that you have is tremendously rewarding to your, to your brain, because it's what helps us survive. So every time that I hit, refresh on Instagram and I see a little kid smiling at me with the robot, I got a social snack. So if the more little Scooby treats that you can give people, then it makes their day better, because like, who hasn't been bored at work and be like, oh,